Welcome to our video on how to improve your cycling performance with interval training. First thing, I want to thank you all for answering our Instagram poll. Because of that, we made this video, so I hope you guys liked it. And if you have any questions, comments, just please let us know and we will try to answer those as well. So let's get just straight to it. So the best way to start with interval training is with the power meter, because the power meter gives you instant data. If you want to ride, for example, the interval is at 300 watt for, I don't know, 5 minutes. And if you go over that, you can easily just check that, and you can also set up your bike computer. The best way to set up is check for those 3-second intervals, 10-second, and then 30-second average. So that's when you can check everything in real time. And yeah, that's why some cyclists are glued to the bike computer, but it is what it is. If you want to improve, I think without a power meter it's going to be hard with the heart rate. So the data that will show on your bike computer is too slow, and that's why you wouldn't be able to perform interval training with the heart rate monitor, because you can go over the limit on the first, let's say, minute, and then your power is too low for the rest of the interval. Buy a power meter, or just in my case without. So if you want to do interval training, just go on group rides with friends that you know that you would be able to ride in a draft behind them. If you can do that, you can go when you're in the front, go full on, and yeah, go when you're on a draft, just try to rest as much as you can. With the heart rate, I usually just check if I'm like overtraining or not. Let's start with the interval training. Interval training is a method of training where you alternate between periods of high intensity effort and periods of rest or low intensity effort. This style of training has been shown to be particularly effective for improving cycling performance, because it helps to increase your body's ability to produce energy aerobically, which is crucial for endurance sports like road cycling. Here's a sample of interval trainings that you can do. This workout can be tailored to your fitness level, so feel free to adjust the intensity and duration of the intervals as needed. Warm up for 10 minutes at an easy pace. 4 sets of 3 minutes at your maximum effort, followed by 3 minutes of active recovery. That means easy pedaling, so that your heart rate just goes down a lot. In my case, it usually means that somebody on a trekking bike or I don't know what can just move straight past you. If your ego is too high, that's going to be a problem. But when you're like between intervals, so when you're at the easier pace, don't be bothered if somebody with a backpack will pass you, because when you have your next interval, I think you will pass them. Keep that in mind. Cool down for 10 minutes at an easy pace. Remember to listen to your body and make sure to take adequate rest and recovery after your interval sessions. To make the most of your interval training, aim to do interval sessions 1 to 2 times a week with at least 48 hours of recovery between sessions. Make sure to balance your interval sessions with other types of training, such as endurance rides, strength training, and recovery rides. Here's a simple training plan. Warm up for 10 minutes at an easy pace. 4 sets of 3 minutes at your maximum effort, followed by 3 minutes of active recovery. Cool down for 10 minutes at an easy pace. Incorporate 1 to 2 times a week with at least 48 hours of recovery between sessions, balancing it with endurance rides, strength training, and recovery rides. Adjust intensity and duration of the intervals as needed. Make sure to listen to your body and make sure to take adequate rest and recovery after your intervals. Interval training is highly effective way to improve your road cycling performance. It is a high intensity training that should be done with care, making sure to listen to your body and take adequate rest and recovery between sessions. Incorporate interval training 1 to 2 times per week. Another example of interval training is warm up for 10 minutes at an easy pace, 8 times 1 minute all-out effort, followed by 2 minutes of easy recovery. This workout is intense, but it can be adjusted to your level of fitness by changing the duration and intensity of the intervals and the number of repetitions. Start by doing a shorter duration, like 30 seconds, all-out effort, then gradually increase the duration to 1 minute as you become more comfortable and confident with the workout. Interval training is also very adaptable. You can do them on a stationary bike, on the road, with a group or alone. Another important aspect to consider is to make sure that you fuel properly before and after your interval training session. Interval training is high intensity and puts a lot of stress on the body, so it's important to make sure you're consuming enough carbohydrates and protein to fuel your workout and aid in recovery. During the workout, it's also really important to have a hydration plan in place to ensure you're staying properly hydrated. Dehydration can negatively impact your performance, so it's important to drink enough water and electrolyte-rich fluids before, during, and after your training. In summary, interval training is a highly effective way to improve your cycling performance. If you want more tips or you want some expert to help you out, we have an expert on our website. His name is Matej Lauche. He's an ex-world champion on an amateur level, and he's been doing it for more than a couple of decades. You can email him and he will give you all the guidelines. My personal interval session or my personal 3-month plan start with longer intervals and on lower intensity. So I would ride for 20 minutes at 70 to 80% of my threshold power, and then I would do 10 minutes rest, and then I would do another, so 3 sessions for 20 minutes with a 10-minute rest in between. I would do those 2 times per week, and on other days I would just ride normally. Maybe 1 time per week I would go riding with a group of people, but other times, yeah, my heart rate would be around 100 to 110 on average. I usually have a pretty low heart rate, around 40, so yeah, that would be my normal ride. Let's say you go to the store, nothing special, just riding around, looking at the trees, birds, stuff like that. So just an easy ride. So 4 times per week, it would be just an easy ride for the first month of training. I would do sessions of 3 weeks training, and the last week would be like a normal ride. So then the second month, I would start with the medium intensity intervals from 5 to 8 minutes long, depends what your goal is. These intervals would be a little bit more demanding. I would start, let's say if it's a 8-minute interval, I would start it with 75 to 80% of for the first 3 minutes. The second 3 minutes would be around 85 to 95%. The last 2 minutes would be 110%. The rest in between would be around 7 minutes. I would just do that 2 times a week, and the rest again simple easy rides, nothing special. I would do that for 3 weeks. 1 week would be a rest day and probably between those sessions I would do sprints on a full minute. I would do 10 seconds, 5 to 10 second sprint. I would try to do that from 8 to 10 sprints from that point on. On a full minute, 10 second sprint, 50 second rest, 10 second sprint, 50 second rest, and for the next 10 minutes I would try to do that. Depends on the road you're in, but yeah. You get the point. If you're feeling like after 5 sprints that you're all out, just stop and yeah, move on, because your training, sometimes it's better to listen to your body than to push yourself too hard, because on your next more important training session, interval session, you won't be able to produce that kind of power, or you will be too exhausted. I would do that probably 1 to 2 times a week, depending on the day, how I'm feeling. Keep in mind, after your interval session, if you're not like fully exhausted, just do another one. Or if you're after 2 interval sessions, if you're too exhausted and you can do a third one, do a third one with lower effort, or just don't do it and rather just ride and try to fuel until you come home. So listen to your body. I think that would be my first advice to anyone who's starting. On the 3rd month, just keep those intervals shorter and with maximum effort as well. What I would do, 4 to 5 minute intervals, just starting with around 90% of threshold power, and then I would just gradually go to until the last minute is like full on sprint. You can start it also with an 80%, and then each minute just go higher by 10%, and then you'll see if you can do like 3 minutes effort or 5 minutes effort. So that would be just my suggestion. When this month is over, then would be my, let's say, my event that I'm preparing for. In the third week, I wouldn't even look at the power meter. I would just go like all out sessions. I would have an imaginary friend, and I would just, let's say he's starting to sprint, I would just look at the time. So on every full minute or on every second full minute, I would just start my intervals. So for example, I'm on a climb, this imaginary friend passes me by, and for the next 20 to 30 seconds I would do a full-on sprint, and I would try to do them as many as possible. When you're on that kind of level, you can do at least like 3 to 5. But yeah, after that, I think probably my last really hard training session was like 4 years ago, and I know that I almost threw up on the top of the hill. So that's one thing. And the most important thing, try to ride with cyclists that are better than you, especially on that third month. Try to do a group ride with cyclists that are better than you, or at least on the same level, and try to do like all out efforts when you're on the front of that group. And yeah, you need to stay with them when it comes to climbs, and at least on the straight roads when you're in a drill. That would be just my training session. Another like key point that I try to emphasize is during your off season, don't do too much riding indoors and outdoors. So try to stay away from your bike at least for 1 month. Try to forget about it. It's not an easy thing when you're a cyclist enthusiast. When you need to push yourself to the limit, that extra drive comes really handy. If you're that kind of cyclist that you can cycle every day year round, that you don't get exhausted and you don't feel the need to pull your bike away from you, that's perfect. But if you're like just an amateur rider that wants to improve every year, even pro cyclists, they go on a break for a couple of weeks or even 1 month and stay away from the bike for that period of time. If it works for them, it sure will work for you as well. Those are just some of my advices when I was riding, and yeah, hopefully this gives you some input on how to train. Yeah, so until next time, ciao. So here are some pro tips for the end, or like my tips for the end. So the first thing is train for the cyclist that you are. So if you're a sprinter, train more like as a sprinter would. If you're like a climber for longer climbs, train longer climbs. And if you're like more of a classics rider, so that you do good on shorter climbs and you're more of a powerful guy, train for those kinds of train to your needs or to your benefit, because not a lot of cyclists are really good at all of those things. But just try to become really good at your thing. So, and the next thing is try to train for the event that you're really focused on. If the event has a longer climb in it, yeah, again, try to train longer climbs, longer intervals, and stuff like that. So I hope that helps, and till next time, ciao.